light is on.
The second light, okay.
Oh, now we're good.
Okay, I'd like to call this meeting of the Development Review Board to order, September the 28th, 2021. The first item on the agenda is the roll call. Staff, please call the roll when Lawrence comes back. Okay, the first item on the agenda is roll call. If staff could please call the roll.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Let me get these bad guys on. Ms. Rebecca Herring. Mr. Brent Hartman.
Present.
Ms. Jamie Bell.
Present.
Ms. Deborah Neal Marisi.
Present.
Dr. Barbara Vandermeer.
Present.
Mr. Rick Kane.
Present.
The Chair Ewan Thompson.
Present.
Mr. Chair, you have a quorum.
Thank you. First, the next item is adoption of the agenda. Do I have a motion to adopt the agenda as published?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
So that was Brent and whom?
I believe Ms. Bell seconded.
Okay, the agenda is adopted unanimously. Next item is the approval of the minutes from August 24th, 2021. Does anybody have any comments on the minutes as published? Hearing none, do I have a motion to approve the minutes from August 24th?
Motion to approve the minutes of August 24th, Deborah Neal Marisi.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. The minutes from August 24th have been adopted. Next item is public comment. If there's anyone from the public would like to make a comment? Nobody? Let's move on. A public comment on anything that's not on the agenda. So if it's covered in the agenda, you'll get an opportunity to speak later on. I'd like to add an item to the agenda, which is I've just been handed this award, except the award's not for me. The award is for Jamie Bell, and it says, in recognition of your valuable service on the Board of Adjustment, February 2017 to September 2017. So. Did she get to vote yet?
Yes, yes. Yes.
New business. Item number 210455. Would staff like to read the item into the minutes, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Petition DB-21-118 SPA. Mr. Stuart Cullen, agent for fiber swimming pools distribution, requesting authorization to allow outdoor accessory storage and display up to 25% of the existing indoor storage area, zoned BA Business Automotive, located at 4322 Northwest 13th Street.
Thank you. Does staff have a report on this item?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Oh. Do we have an echo? I think we do. Let me make sure this is.
Lawrence, please mute your computer.
Yeah, I did that before I came here. Stop sharing. I did. Mine is muted.
Yes.
I'm going to share my screen, Mr. Chair.
That's you, or you need to mute your.
This one is
Yeah, this has to be muted.
this is muted.
Okay.
Oh,
And
wait,
your
this one.
speakers are muted. And your laptop, I think.
My laptop's muted. Let me see the speakers.
That was that feedback. So once you're muted.
Lawrence, keep your laptop muted. Just turn on the microphone.
Okay.
Yeah.
Keep
We'll
my
pick your
laptop.
audio. I
Oh,
think we're
it's muted here, but are you good now? Or?
I think it sounds good now.
Okay. Let's share the screen again. Putting me on the spot here. Okay. Better. Mr. Chair, petition 21-DB21-118 SPA, Stuart Cullen, agent for fiber swimming pools, requesting authorization to allow outdoor accessory storage at 4322 Northwest 13th Street. This petition, as you can see, relates to the property off of Northwest 13th Street, 441. The red outline here shows the location of the property, as well as another piece of property to the south, which somehow is related to this petition. 39th on the south and 45th on the north side of the property. Again, this is the subject property with a close-up view. You could see the outline of the property, and again, the subject property. Wow, this is moving fast. Subject property here. This is the zoning on the subject property. Move this. As you can see, most of the zoning around here is BA, which is business automotive. This is BUS office, and behind all of this is a set of single-family residential development, and this is actually a strip corridor along 13th Street, and it actually, in a strict sense, it forms a buffer between the corridor and the residential on the western side. There is a creek system that runs to the west of the subject property, as you can see in this blue area here. And the area is also in the Wellfield Protection District. This is the property. The Wellfield District extends to this area. So the subject property, the applicant has requested storage in this location. This is a view of the property without the storage, and as you could see that there are no storage of pools or display of pools in this area. But the next shot shows that there are areas of pool display, and I have them highlighted in this area here. This is the subject property that we have outlined. There are pools in the back in a yard area, which we have some pictures of, some pools over here and over in this, on this side of the property. This, I am just going to show the frontage along 13th Street to give you an idea of what this looks like here. This area here, as you can see, is this was the place that was cited. It's adjacent to this property, as you can see. And again, you can see the storage here. And this is the subject property where the applicant is seeking to have outdoor storage right in this general area here between those buildings. And this is the property to the north, which was once occupied by a pool retail area, which had the same citation issues, but it no longer exists. And there is an office building to the northern section of the property. So with that, the applicant applied to the city for a zoning compliance permit in 2019, and the permit was approved for retail pool store at 4322, and the applicant was informed that there would be, this is the zoning application, and the approval indicated that there would be no outdoor storage. However, the applicant proceeded, as you saw in the previous slides, that there was storage of pools and other facilities on the area. Code enforcement visited the site and cited the applicant for violation of the ordinance. The applicant went through the process through a special magistrate, and the decision was to find that the applicant was guilty in terms of violation of the code, outdoor storage. And there is an outstanding violation on the properties where pools are displayed. I do have the code enforcement officer here, and I'll call on him if you have any questions for him at this time or later, to elaborate or answer any questions related to the citation. If we have no questions, I'll proceed. Okay. Mr. Chair, with that, you have the zoning of the property, and as you can see, the property has kind of like a 3-type zoning: single family residential to the back. In the middle, there is a business type zoning, BUS, and at the front, which is BA, which is consistent with most of the zoning along Northwest 13th Street, with a few scattered areas of business, and you can see the same here. And on the other side, you have an MU1 district. So this area functions as a full transportation corridor with business strip along that area. I wanted to show you for the purposes of this, what the code describes as accessory. Use means any activity or function that is incidental to and on the same lot as a principal use. That's what the code describes accessory as. And it also defines outdoor storage, which means the display outside of a completely enclosed building of materials either sold or which is part of the business, but it excludes junkyards, which are not allowed in this district. As you can see in all of the zoning districts, MU1, MU2, that outdoor storage as a principal use is not permitted. In the BI district, it is allowed by special use permit, as you can see I'm showing with this slide here. And in the warehouse, industrial, and I2 districts, outdoor storage is permitted as a principal use. And the code specifically makes a distinction between vehicular sales and storage as opposed to regular storage. And as you can see here, no outdoor display is allowed in any of those, but it is allowed in all these districts, which would be BUS, BA, BT, and so forth. and vehicle sales with outdoor storage are allowed in those areas. Where outdoor storage is a permitted principal or accessory use, the applicant has decided that in lieu of this, as part of resolving this violation, that they wanted to have accessory outdoor storage, which the code allows under section 30-5.2, and it says where outdoor storage is permitted, not including accessory short-term storage, the following requirements apply. Screening requirements, a landscape, additional screening, and no merchandise equipment. These are the conditions for outdoor storage in general. And the point of this reference is to draw to your attention that even where outdoor storage is allowed as a principal use, there are those stricter screening requirements that apply. Some of those would apply, but with certain limitations in the accessory outdoor storage area. There are also design standards in the mixed-use district where parking is considered a form of storage, and the code also has limitation on the amount of storage that you can have. It says in no case shall more than 50% of the parking be located between the front facade and the primary abutting street. And that goes to just the way the code treats outdoor storage in general as well as accessory storage. Mechanical equipment, the code has regulations and standards for mechanical equipment, and they're not allowed to be placed towards the front, placed on the side or on the roof of the building. And the same here with electrical transformers and other utility equipment which are considered some type of storage, and the code has regulations addressing those areas. So with that, Mr. Chair, the applicant has submitted an application, and the map on the right side is the applicant's drawing addressing the outdoor accessory display and storage. And I want you to focus on these are the conditions, these are the criteria for allowing accessory outdoor storage, and I will go through them A to D. So, sorry, this went a little fast. The first one is that outdoor storage and display shall be designated on an approved plan. Well, this is the plan that the applicant submitted, and staff is not expecting that the applicant would submit a detailed scale drawing in the form that we typically do. But what we are expecting is that there should be an as-built for the record to establish the property boundaries, the buildings, where they are located, which building is used as the primary structure, and other factors related to the outdoor storage display if you approve that request. So staff is recommending a few conditions that would address that. One is that if you approve this plan, that the applicant shall submit to us, to staff, the subject parcel that will be housing the primary use and its relationship to the minor subdivision, which I will discuss in a few minutes. The property boundaries, the location and dimension of the primary structure housing the principal use. As you can see, the applicant has indicated that this is the fiber swimming pool. But there is no way to tie this down in terms of how far this building is, the location, the dimensions of the building. So the applicant would provide a drawing showing those dimensions and requirements of the code. And the applicant is also requesting that the 20%, which is 800 square feet based on the size of the principal building. The proposal shall be in accordance with the overall design and conditions of the development plan, and with the conditions, I think the applicant will meet that requirement in terms of establishing for the record and for future, and so that code enforcement in the future or anyone else needing to verify could establish where you approve the outdoor storage, its relationship to the buildings, and where it's supposed to be. If the proposed outdoor storage is located within 20 feet of the public right-of-way, it shall be enclosed and screened by a wall, fence, or hedge that is not less in height than 2/3 the height of any equipment or fixture used or material stored on the site. The applicant is proposing that the storage area be more than 20 feet from the right-of-way indicated here. So the drawing would show that, and that would meet that requirement C. And one condition associated with this is the outdoor storage area shall be clearly delineated so that the applicant in the site plan will show their location, the distance from either property line, so that it will always be within that area and not on this area, on this lot, or any other lot. And the outdoor storage or display shall be clearly incidental or accessory to the principal use of the property and shall be limited to not more than 25%. And based on what the applicant has submitted, 25% of 4,200 would be 800 square feet, which is what they're requesting, and that would be part of the condition of approval. With regard to the minor subdivision, when the applicant submits the plan to meet your requirements, if you do approve it, there should be clarification on, there is a minor subdivision on this property, and as you can see, this is parcel 1, this is parcel 2, and this is parcel 3. But the buildings that's located and the storage, as you can see, if the storage is somewhere between here, it's on 2 parcels. The applicant can either, he has the option of re-aggregating all these parcels without any petition or requests for staff, so that the property would act as one, or if they intend to maintain the subdivision, then the storage would have to be on either one of those parcels that's shown here. So if they're combining these two, then they would have to use that, but the drawing that the applicant submits would have to address those issues. As you can see, this is the subject property. There is a building here, another one here, and you can see where the storage is. When you look at this minor subdivision, we're just asking for clarification on those issues. And so one condition is that the applicant shall demonstrate how and why outdoor storage is needed for operating of a swimming pool office. The application indicated that the applicant has a swimming pool office, and the code requires outdoor storage for a use which is permitted. So if this is an office, we want the applicant to clarify whether this is an office or a retail space, and have their license clarify that, because an office does not really need storage, outdoor storage of pools. And this is the location of the well field. The property is in the wellfield district, as indicated before. This is the tertiary zone. This is the secondary zone over here. And as you can see, the property is in here. And one condition staff has is that the applicant shall provide a list of materials to be stored in the designated area on the site, because there are limitations of what you can store in any of those wellfield protection zones. And it has to be clarified or be consistent with Alachua County EPD hazardous materials map. And with that, our recommendation is to approve petition DB 21-118 with conditions, to allow the storage up to 25%. And these are the conditions listed, 1, 2, 3, 4. And with that, Mr. Chair, if you have any questions, I would be happy to attempt answering them.
Thank you. Does anyone from the board have any questions of staff? Yes, Brent.
And Mr. Calderon, maybe you explained this and I just didn't catch it, but can you explain the difference between what primary display is and accessory display?
So the code does not allow outdoor storage in any of those districts listed except the BI, the W, I1, and I2. However, the code anticipates that businesses operating would have a certain amount of outdoor storage associated with the use. So the code provided an option to allow the 25% of the area to be allocated to storage based on the materials which the applicant or the store is operating. So in terms of the material, I don't think there is a difference in terms of the material. It's just the extent of the storage that is being limited.
So when it's an accessory display, that's when it's limited to the 25% of the indoor space versus primary, there would be no limitation on it if it was in that zone that allowed for primary storage?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else have any questions? I have just a question regarding clarification. So, in summary, this is not allowed unless the applicant makes a formal approval, which they're doing now, and if we approve it, it is allowed, and it satisfies all of the land development regulations. Is that correct?
I did not quite hear the full question. Can you repeat it, please?
My question was, well, the way I understand it, and just correct me if I'm wrong, is if this was, for example, in a W or, well, a W area, it would be permitted and staff would just sign off on it. Is that correct?
Yes, there are conditions, as I mentioned earlier, in terms of screening and storing behind the height. If it's allowed, it would have to meet those conditions.
Right.
And
So,
as long as it meets those conditions, it's a use allowed by right.
so the only difference is here is we have to approve it.
Well, because the code does not allow storage, it gives the board the option of reviewing the request to determine whether it is appropriate or suitable to have that much, 25% of the storage in this area based on compliance and consistency with the code.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions? Yes.
So, this is not a variance that we're reviewing in which, like, you know, the unique circumstances of the property, they're asking permission to use outdoor storage. Instead, they're asking for special permission within their type of zoning to do this.
Yes,
Okay. It's BA, right?
yes,
Which was not permitted.
right.
Okay, so they're allowed to ask for permission because it didn't, the other one said special permission, right? But this is a not permitted one. So that's what I wanted clarification on. Like, is this even, are we allowed to give permission in a zone where it's not permitted at all?
Well, yes, the code says in section 30-5.41, outdoor accessory display and storage. So I would say that the board would have to determine that it is true outdoor storage, that it is accessory display, and that it meets the 25% of the principal building, so that you would look at the size of the building and what the business is operating and decide, well, that is 25% and that business truly qualifies to have outdoor storage. And based on that, you would look at the compatibility of outdoor storage and storage in general in reference to the surrounding properties. For example, if you think that the storage of certain types of material will be incompatible with an adjacent office use, then you would take that into consideration.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I have one question.
Yes.
Do you have any pictures street of what this looks like? I haven't seen them.
I thought let me see, I think I did.
Everything is from a bird's eye view, which to me is not clear. All of these
Yeah.
regulations pertain
So
to
this is,
how it looks from the street.
yeah, so this is an aerial view of this site. So when you look at this, this is what you see in front of this. This is an on-street picture that I took on Friday. Was it Tuesday or Wednesday? Right. And this is the storage, and what you can see is, yeah, and what you can see here is actually the section between here, taken from the street.
Okay.
Yeah. So looking this way, this is what you see.
Where's the parking?
There, this parking here is right in front of the pool, so there are no parking here. If somebody wants to park, you have the dumpster and other areas for parking.
So how many cars can specifically have actual real space to park?
There are striped parking spaces in front there. As if you pull up there, you can see that there are striped parking spaces. And because I think Todd parked in this area and I parked somewhere on the side there, and there are other cars here. So there is parking out there, but the pools are stacked out in this area. And the applicant has not satisfied the court's violation, but what they're asking for is to have storage in this area, which is here. So if you do approve it, you would have storage in this area. The anticipation is that the applicant will remove all of these in compliance with the magistrate's adjudication. And I can pass, Todd just showed me some pictures that were taken on Friday.
So the other question is, don't they legally have to have a screen in front of this display, and yet they actually want a full display for obvious purposes?
Well, that's where you have to look at this section of the code that talks about if it is more than 20 feet from the, here, see? If the proposed outdoor display or storage is located within 20 feet of the public right-of-way, it shall be enclosed and screened by a wall, fence, or hedge that is not less in height than 2/3 of the height of the equipment stored. It is beyond the 20 feet, so that standard would not apply.
So it doesn't need a screen because it's deeper than 20 feet from the road, is that what you're saying?
I think that's a decision that the board would have to make.
I'll have to.
According to
that's
this,
a question I'm asking, not a
according to
decision.
this, they would not be, we would not require them to do screening or wall or fence or hedge.
But the actual rules say that it has to be screened for
That rule is the rule for,
less than 20 feet.
no, where outdoor storage is permitted. And there is a little bit of complexity in the code here because, and the reason I pointed this out to you is to show you that the code does not take lightly the issue of outdoor storage. Even where it's allowed, there are screening requirements and the storage of materials and types of material. But the code does, it recognizes that a business would have to have some amount of storage to continue its operation. So in that vein, the code provided an option for you, the board, to review and analyze this and say, yes, we think that it meets the requirements and it's okay or not.
So
Or
the other
to
question
apply
is
conditions.
the technicalities of what kind of materials can be put in place under the Wellfield Protection District. So are there any chemicals? I haven't heard anything.
I don't know, Ms.
So you're not aware of whether there are
I'm not
or
aware.
not chemicals, and that's going to be a question for Mr. Collins.
I know that pool businesses, we had one of the pool businesses on Main Street, we had them go through the plan board for a special use permit because they were handling hazardous materials such as chlorine I don't know whether
Main
this,
Street said,
I don't know whether this
yeah,
business is
it's
operating.
not any problems at
Yeah.
Main Street.
And I don't know if they have new pools or old pools, and whether there are remnants of chlorine. I do not have that information. So what the condition would do is that the applicant would list, well, here are the list of items that we are going to be stored in there. We would review it in terms of the well fill protection, and if none of them meet that requirement, we would say, attaboy, go ahead.
Yes.
All right. Thank you very much. Yes.
The building to the right of the office, as you're facing it, is a house. Am I correct? It looks like a house.
I think it's,
It's
you may want to ask the issue about this petition is that there are 3 properties. This one here and this one. This one has 2 houses on it, and it has, I think the fiber swimming pool is operating here. I am not sure whether it's a retail business or whether it's an office. The applicant can clarify that for you. But we know that this business here was the one that was cited, and that's where all those pools are. So the request tonight before you is just for this area.
Well, I have a follow-up question which will be answered by the applicant, so I don't expect you to give me the answer, but there's 3 different addresses here, 4308, 4310, and 4322 Northwest 13th Street. The code violation was 4310, and I understand those are the properties to the south. The present application is just for 4322, so I'd be very interested to hear what's going to happen to the properties to the south, what use they're going to be put to, and how the code violation fits in with the new tax parcel, which may be just a minor detail, but it's just something it's a loose end in my mind.
I have somebody from code enforcement who would be able to.
Would you be able to address the difference between the address for the code enforcement and the address to the north now for the application that we're considering tonight?
The property to the south, is the one with all the pools that are in his photos, has a running fine every day of, I think it's $50 a day. Been running, I think, for about 10 months. The property that's in question today has a new notice that was issued last week, because when I went out to meet with Lawrence to discuss it, to figure out what exactly was going on, there was pools stored in the back of the property that's up today before you, so there was a notice issued on that property also. If you guys approve this, it would not change the property to the south.
Okay, so that's sort of out of our purview completely.
2 separate.
We don't need to worry about it.
No, that has no bearing on this one.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question, sir. Do you know any of the history on the neighboring property that also had a pool service?
Do what?
The neighboring property that had a pool service?
The
There's a picture of
history
your
on it?
Just to the north, there was
It's no longer in business, and it
But-
probably won't be back in business. There's some issues with the building itself.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for staff or code enforcement? All right, the applicant now, we're ready for your presentation. Thank you.
Good evening, I'm Stuart Cullen, and I represent Elizabeth Beatty Trust as well as Fiber Swimming Pools this evening. I appreciate staff's comprehensive assembly of the staff report, the review of the application, and being able to come talk to you this evening. I don't have a formal presentation. What I'd like to do is just dovetail on some of the things that staff discussed and presented, and we could move forward with, as you recognize in the staff report, the ultimate approval from staff, or recommendation from staff is approval of the petition. So there are a few things that I want to clarify and help and maybe have a better understanding of what the presentation was and what we're actually looking at this evening. Starting from the back side of the presentation and the discussion that a recommendation from approval is very important and very pertinent, because the recommendation for approval comes from The request for accessory outdoor storage has nothing at all, and there has been no request for permitted principal outdoor storage use. Everything that was in the staff report, everything that staff talked about in regards to a principal permitted use for outdoor storage is non-consideration for this hearing. We're only asking for accessory use because it's the only thing that's allowed. Staff told you that. The only thing that's allowed in this district is accessory use, and there's 4 criteria in the code. Staff presented that to you. So any of the discussions about not permitted uses, screening buffers, and things along those lines, that's for a principal use of outdoor storage. But as we started this discussion with staff 6 or 8 months ago, the first thing that they've said, and they've said all along, is you cannot do principal outdoor storage. So when we look at a couple of different things in regards to it, you're looking at a picture that staff has on the screen now. The property to the south doesn't have a principal use that allows outdoor accessory storage. The office is on the yellow property. So we have to do accessory storage and display on the yellow property itself. So if you would please disregard all the discussion about principal use and things along those lines, because it's not even a consideration. It was not a request. It's not an expectation. And none of that code has bearing on the decision of the 4 criteria for accessory storage. It's only on the principal use, and it's not principal use. So wanted to make sure that we looked at that and thought about that and understand that. Next thing is to look at the overall tax parcel itself. The tax parcel is 1 parcel. It has a minor subdivision on it, which means the lines are drawn in between, but it's 1 tax parcel. Therefore, we're allowed to have accessory storage on the same parcel or lot. It is the same parcel, therefore it's allowed. So we meet that criteria. The staff did a really good job of assembling an understanding of what conditions may be warranted in regards to how the operation of the site is rather than the site plan itself. And let me back up for just a second to define what I mean by site plan. So there was a question earlier about, is this a allowed expectation, and is that what the board is approving, or were you approving something that's a variance? The answer is that it is allowed, but it's only allowed as an accessory use when there's a permitted site plan that allows for it to be on there. Staff gave you pieces of the zoning compliance. The rest of it doesn't make any difference, where it says no outdoor storage was permitted. And that's correct. When the retail operation for the pool sales applied to open their business in the building itself, it was a retail operation, and they were told you can't have outdoor storage because there's not an approved site plan. Well, a retail operation, the sale of pools, needs the ability to show the pool, to demonstrate to a potential client what a pool looks like. And so the sale of the pools requires display. The pools of these sizes doesn't fit inside the actual showroom itself. They have pamphlets of paper and stuff that show it, but not the pool itself. So it's clearly an incidental use to the pool sales itself. And going back to the retail request for having the operation there, the display for retail is a clear definition of it. So staff's condition, I believe it was condition 4, is to prove that we need display, goes against their own paperwork, that they already have a retail operation. A retail operation requires display. So my request is that that condition be moot because it's already known as a retail operation. There's well, let me move on to looking at a couple of pictures. If you would go back one of your pictures, Lawrence, please. That one. Perfect. So I'm going to do two different things, and staff is showing the overhead. This is in the staff report, but this is, if you would zoom in just a little bit more, and then maybe flip it on the screen. This is in the staff report, but this is a picture of the site before the pool people moved in. It's buried in your report, but what you can see is the building itself where the pool operation is, the pool retail operation, the sales office is, and the structure next door. Yes, it looks like a house, and at one time it was a house. It's just a storage facility now. It's not, it is habitable, but it's not, nobody is living there. It's just used as a storage facility. Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Can we ask IT to switch
The screen so you can see it a little bit better? Yeah.
Yeah, so you can actually see
Would
the
you mind
picture.
flipping to the overhead on the screen, please?
I can stop sharing.
There you go.
There we go. Thank you.
Thanks for picking that up.
Do a little bit of adjustments. There we go. Okay, so this now, if you look at if you were to drive by now, it actually has the pool name on it, and pool name on the sign, and it has the notification sign out front on the side. This is the house that we're talking about in this location. And so, yes, as staff said, the display of pools is proposed right in this area in front of that structure. Although it's a house, it's not a high quality looking house, and it is not operational as a house. In particular, it's as a pool. I'm sorry, as a storage facility. If you would flip back, please. Thank you. So this picture, you can see the inset, and you see the three pools, the white with the blue in the middle. That is the display that we're asking for. Those three pools sitting next to and in front of that house and next to the sales office itself. They'll have a little bit of light on them, and that's what we're looking at, a minimum of 20 feet away from the right-of-way as allowed by code. That's all we're asking for. That is that. Now, they may be square, they may be slightly different, but 800 square feet, which is allowed by 25% of the 3,200 square foot office. When we hope that this approval moves forward and the client goes and puts these pools on the other side of this building, staff has asked for in the condition an as-built. I've been in this business a long time. Water Management District asks for as-builts to make sure that we build retention ponds correctly. Occasionally, some of the utility systems are asking for as-builts to make sure that the water pipe is correct and the sewage flows correctly. But staff, on regular site plans and this site plan, asking for an as-built is not part of our typical design process, not part of our typical code process, and not part of a typical review process by the staff. So to ask for an as-built after is not part of the code.
Would you, this as-built is a
It's
new term. Whereabouts, which condition?
It's condition 1, I think.
Condition 1, okay, I'd just like to
I think,
look at
let me-
the actual condition. Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
and maybe I should direct this to Mr. Calderon, but Lawrence, we were talking, when you were giving your report in the beginning, you were saying that the site plan as submitted that came from basically property appraiser was not sufficient detail to show the distance of the building from the right of way, et cetera, right? And so you were asking for an as-built, but I'm inclined to agree with the presenter that an as-built is a bit excessive. Couldn't we do like an existing survey of the property or some other existing site plan that shows the appropriate dimensions and distances? I mean, the only goal is to figure out if it's 20 feet or more from the right of way, correct? I mean, where does like, where does the requirement for an as-built come from? That is, I agree, it's sort of an odd request for just the setbacks from a building from the right of way.
So, Mr. Chair, when an applicant is moving into a building, they are required to have a zoning compliance permit. So the applicant submits it, and when he submits the application for the pool storage, it clearly stated no outdoor storage permitted. That was October 30th, 2019. There is the full zoning compliance permit. Ms. Vandermeer, could you pass it, please?
Mr. Chair, in response to your
So
question,
on the
as-built
basis,
is when you present a plan to build something a certain way, then you build it, and then you submit a signed and sealed as-built drawing saying it was built as designed, basically. But the applicant didn't build this site, so wouldn't a survey be sufficient to answer the questions that staff is asking? That's my question.
Well, I guess we need clarification on the words as-built in this instance. I interpret that just to mean a rectangle on your plan there showing where it is, how big it is, how far it is from the boundaries. Is that not what you were referring to when you meant as-built?
Mr. Chair, I didn't get a chance to finish the explanation of the condition. And what I was saying is that when an applicant approaches us, there is a certain amount of trust in that you asked to do this. And 2019, the applicant came in and said no outdoor storage. But we see a significant amount of outdoor storage on the site to the point where code enforcement took the applicant to the magistrate. The magistrate ruled against them and asked them to take care of it. That was when I think it was December or so. And yet nothing has been done.
That's not this site, by the way.
So staff in helping you, if you decide to approve that, and as well as the city, the applicant and code enforcement to say, okay, here is a site. We have the dimensions of the site. This plan does not have any dimensions of the site. So we don't know where the corner is. We don't know where the street frontage is. We have no information on that. The applicant shows that the building is located. The property appraiser's office records, which is where this came from, does not have an accurate location of where those are. Staff is not expecting the applicant to go and come up with a detailed plan. We ask specifically that they provide a plan that would identify and tie down the following factors. One, which building, the lot of course. Two, which building, because there are 4 buildings on the site. And if we do not tie that one down, tomorrow the applicant can say, well, we were thinking of the building in the back, the building in the front. So for memorialization, we ask that the applicant shows which building, the dimensions of the building, and the location of the building on the site. We ask that the applicant identify the square footage associated with it, which is in condition 1, and to take 25% of that. That 25% we thought has to be placed in a certain location. The map that the applicant shows, you cannot tell where this is, how far it is from the north property line, how far is it from the rear property line, how far it is from the street, how far it is in relationship to the other buildings. So we thought that if we do approve this, we want to know so that if code enforcement goes out there, they will say, well, you're supposed to be 20 feet or 30 feet, and you're not, and you're storing this. 800 square feet is what the calculation is. When we went out there and measured those poles out there, these 3 poles are beyond the 800 square feet, the dimension that we have seen that the applicant is asking for. it goes beyond that. So without having a defined area to say, this is where the board is approving it, we feel that we're just spinning our wheels and we're not providing direction to the applicant, as well as to code enforcement and to the city and the
Okay.
surrounding property owners.
Thank you, Mr. Collin. That was my understanding of what you said. It's a case of drawing a plan, putting dimensions on it. Now, Mr. Cullen, what is particularly onerous in being asked to do that? Because I still don't understand what the problem is with identifying the building, saying where it is, saying this is where the storage is going to be, this is how big it's going to be, because that is not on the plan. Any rudimentary plan would have dimensions and placement. So when you contest the as-built requirement as being unduly onerous, why are you contesting it and sort of identifying it? It seems reasonable.
Lawrence, would you mind going to my submitted site plan on your PowerPoint?
And,
It'd be a little
Mr.
bit easier
Chair,
to see
you
than
can
our
always
head.
change
That's it,
staff's,
that's it.
you can always change the conditions that we have there and say, if you feel
That's
that the
correct.
language is not right, then you could always make a motion to approve it as you see. But if we do not tie this down, just as the applicant came and said they would not do outdoor storage and they did it and continue to do this, I think you need to a certain extent take that into consideration.
Okay, so this is great. We have the plan here. So I guess in addition to what's on that plan now, we need all of the dimensions from the boundaries to the building, the dimensions, the actual dimensions of the building, its width, its depth, which building it is. I think it's identified there which building it is, and where the 20 by 40, is it 20 by 40? You're allowed 800 square feet if it's 20 by 40. Where is the 20 by 40 rectangle that everything you plan to put in there will be put in there, and then when codes enforcement comes out, you could put a survey staker on each corner if you like. When codes enforcement come out, they can say, oh, exactly this is where you're supposed to be and this is where you're not, move it over 2 feet. That seems to be reasonable.
Mr. Chair, I respectfully submit that this plan tells you exactly that.
Okay, that yellow rectangle, how far is it from the road?
Minimum of 20 feet.
Okay, a minimum of 20 feet is not a dimension. That's a limit. Now, if it's 20 feet from the road, then I think what staff is asking for is, this is 20 feet from the road, put a dot on the map, and 40 feet from there, due south. How far is it from the northern boundary, for example? The yellow rectangle, what's the distance between the top of the yellow rectangle and the northern boundary of the parcel?
Mr. Chair, may
Yes.
I ask a clarifying question? When staff states as-built in the condition, are you requesting like a signed and sealed as-built drawing? Because that's the implication when I read it. Whereas, do you have a survey of the property?
Do not.
You do not have a survey of the property. Could you go out and measure the distance from the road to the yellow rectangle, from the yellow rectangle to the building, and actually add those dimensions drawn out on the site plan? Because yes, you have the length and the width, but you don't have the distances and the setbacks clearly identified. Can you add those dimensions to this without it being an official signed and sealed document?
We can place it. Right now, it hasn't been officially staked on site, and I submit that the code doesn't require it or ask for it. The code doesn't have that kind of tight stipulation that this is not something that we're building. It's not a building setback. It's not a building height limitation. This is outdoor accessory storage, and we're talking about putting pools in it. And so if you're saying that I need to go out and designate that exactly at that only point, first I ask you where in the code does it tell me? The code says I'm restricted to 25%. It doesn't say it has to be restricted to a certain spot. Granted, the DRB has the availability to say, yes, I want it restricted to that yellow square, rectangle. And if you guys tell me that, then I'm okay with it and we will define it in that way. But keep in mind, we're talking about pools. And so if we come in and we take the pools and we set them up in the 20 by 40 area, which is what's designated on here, and it's 21 feet from the right-of-way, but only 18 feet deep, am I going to get a code violation? When the code doesn't require me to tell staff or codes or a site plan that it's that precise. Okay, if you say this is the general area, that the only place we can have storage, I'm okay with that. But to tell me that we put them here next week or tomorrow, and then we go out and survey that, and that's the only place I can have them, that's not the way the code works.
Yes.
For outdoor accessory display. If my client takes it and changes out the pool, and it moves it 6 inches, now are we in violation? That's not the regulations that I think that the code is written under and that you guys are trying to put this client under. We're restricting it to 25% for accessory storage. Got it. We'll stay under 25%, and if not, then he deserves a code violation. I've got no problem with that. But to hold it to exact spots of an as-built survey to verify it's the same, like a handicapped parking space that has to be 12 feet wide. And if it's not 12 feet wide, it's in federal violation. That's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about 800 square feet on a large site. Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Chair, if I may, Lawrence, is the primary goal behind getting dimensions just to clarify the distance from the right-of-way so that we know whether or not C applies? Is that like the primary intent behind needing the dimensions? Just to ensure the 20 feet is met, if not, they have to put a screen up?
There are lots of factors involved here. I mean, the applicant's arguments tells you exactly what the situation is. It's like, if we put, could you show that up there for me, please? If we approve the location and we have no idea where it is, today it's in one area, tomorrow it's in another area, tomorrow it extends this area, and we have no idea what it is that you approved of. If you feel comfortable with that, Mr. Chair, that's a decision that you have to make. If you feel that you want to have a floating 800 square feet, that's the board's decision.
It sounds to me like the way the rule is written is that if it's more than 20 feet from the right-of-way and 800 or less square feet, then it doesn't matter where it is, as long as it's measurable. So
could he move it close to the residential area because it is 800 square feet?
What's
and it's
the
next
rule
to,
about the residential area?
there are residential areas there.
Right, no, I'm saying, but is there like a setback rule for the outdoor accessory storage, or is the rule just, if it's less than 20 feet, it needs a screen and it's gotta be 800 square feet or less? And is it a net 800 square feet? Like, could you put one pool here, one pool here, one pool here, or do they all have to be together in one actually cordoned off area? I mean, what's
Mr. Chair, I
the
think that's
intent of the rule here? Is it just to like minimize the aesthetics of outdoor accessory storage? And if so, as long as it's far enough away, it doesn't have to be screened, and it's 800 square feet or less, what are we arguing over here?
Yeah, thank you, and I think we can talk about that in board discussion.
Sure.
It's gonna be very interesting because that, and
Right.
you know, please leave that up on there for our board discussion, because I think we'll all have comments about it.
Right.
I have a question, yes.
I'm sorry. I'm almost done, Mr. Chair. And
Proceed, then I have a question.
I'm sorry?
Proceed, then I have a question.
Okay. All right. Well, Mr. Chair, code enforcement provided a picture, and I'm going to dovetail on our quick discussion of this is what it was in December of last year when the initial violations came out and the issues arose. This is in front of the house. Is this what we're proposing? No. Is this the expectation of what will go there from city staff? I don't know, but it's not what we're proposing. And so we need to clearly draw a line between what has been on that site since the pools arrived in what we're asking for. And what we're asking for is to meet perfectly within the code. The limitation on the 4 restrictive items of the accessory storage. Is it accessory to the principal use? Yes. Is it less than 25% of the, or maximum 25% of the principal use building? Yes. Is it a minimum of 20 feet from the right of way so you don't have to screen it? Yes. And the other one, I don't remember exactly what it is. I'll have to pull it up, but the answer is yes, that we meet it. And those were also put in expectations. Uh-oh. Microphone not working. Oh, and the overall design and conditions of the development plan. This is the development plan. This is the plan that exists on file. So I welcome 100% of the discussion. I welcome staff's recommendation of approval as an accessory use. What my concern is, and I'm happy to answer as many discussions and conditions that we may want to develop that are relatively reasonable to not overly restrict. We're not trying to overly restrict a code violation. We're trying to allow the business to operate and not diminish the city in itself as well. And that's why we have the restriction. That's why it's 20 feet from the right of way. And we're okay with that. So my request to the board is that you take staff's recommendation for approval. You add in potentially a little bit of a text such as shown on the submitted site plan, which was the site plan that had the red text on it that I submitted that I requested the yellow rectangle. That, in my opinion, meets all those conditions without going above and beyond some of the conditions that are requested. If you need a little bit more guidance and discussion on the potential motion, it is that condition 1 is that we don't request it and request that it goes away. That's the as-built one. Condition number 2 is okay. Condition number 2 was that it has to be part of the pool business. We understand that, and it's the same condition as condition 3, that we proved that it's part of a retail business. And condition 4, we're talking about preformed fiberglass pools. There are no other materials. We're not bringing chlorine in. They're not manufacturing the pools on site. They're not manufacturing anything on site to go above and beyond and ask for anything additional in the tertiary well field to store a pool there that is innocuous in its own aspect of things. It has no leaching potential. There's no chemicals with it. There's nothing that they're doing with them. They're putting them down for display with a light on them to show the clients when they come in that this is the pools that we sell. These are the choices that you have, and they're the display that way. So it's actually a relatively straightforward, very simple request. It seems like it's blown up, but the expectation is that it's straightforward. Give me an area where we can do it on site. That's what we're looking for, and I'm happy to help formulate or answer any other questions that you may have.
Deborah, did you have the question?
I did have a question. Sorry.
Go ahead.
No, I have a question about, so there's absolutely, they're just selling the pools as a component and someone else installs them and fills them with water and puts the chlorine in, so there are no hazardous materials, there's nothing in any way
correct.
that would be in violation with the well field in this area?
That is absolutely correct.
Okay. And I have to say, just as a comment, that I realize that you may feel that it's not needed to have a survey, but I find this very vague. We're dealing with someone who's out of compliance right now and is under code violations, and you're asking us to accept the faith that it's going to be within the code with this. So I'm sorry, that's part of my great hesitancy on this. Thank you.
Barbara?
My question is,
With regard to these pools here were the cause of the initial violation.
That's correct.
And now these pools are over there in that other lot.
Well, it's not those, but.
But yes,
th-
over
they-
on the other side. So
they
the
were moved.
violation was not the what it looks like currently. The violation
correct.
was this.
The original violation was this.
Okay, thank you.
The total answer is that the client has not been able to come into conformance on either this property or the other property. They've been through code enforcement on the other property. They were guilty on the other property and they're paying fines on the other property. It's not part of this discussion. This property came into compliance as part of trying to resolve the violations on the other property. They brought this property back out of compliance. And that's why just now, less than a week ago, there's been another violation. We will deal with that, but the appropriate answer to that, the cure for that violation, is to approve a site plan that defines that we can have 800 square foot of, or 25% maximum accessory storage, and that's why we're here, and that'll help with that.
Go ahead.
I'm not done. I'd like to, I want to be able to really hear what you're talking about, but you have talked so much that I'm having a little bit of trouble now. So I'd like to have this gentleman just
Sure.
come and talk about this situation here that I was curious about. Thank you.
What can I answer?
Okay, so is what I said correct, that originally you went, or somebody went, and this is what it looked like?
Originally, this property and the adjacent property were both in violation.
They were both in violation.
They were both in violation.
So they
During
were-
the course of the case, this property came into compliance, the one that's before you today. It came into compliance, the other property did not.
Oh.
And doing the several weeks ago, we were notified about this property again. The officer who originally did the case is out on leave. I met Mr. Lawrence, I believe it was last week, to look at it. We issued a notice because there's more than 800 square feet of storage on this property
This
in the
property.
back
In the back.
currently. And that's why the notice was issued. I believe it was issued on the 24th.
That was my remaining question. What is in the back? What is behind these
The-
two properties? And I'm looking
I
at
don't
them.
know the answer to that. That would have to be Lawrence.
Yeah, well, you said there were other pools behind.
The picture that you saw earlier with the pickup truck parked in it,
Yeah,
if you'll look beyond the,
Yes.
hold on a second, let me see if I can find a photo. It's not very well, if I can have the overhead.
there's just a lot of space back there, and so I'm curious.
If you'll look, the pointer's not here. There's a truck, and then you look at behind the building. Right there, got you right here, Todd. Oh, right here, sorry.
This-
I forgot, I'm
this is
looking
what
right, I'm so
curious
used to the
about,
overhead.
this area.
This pool's on that property, then the pool's in the back. There's several pools here, and behind this building,
Okay,
there's 5 or 6 other swimming pools.
okay, all right.
And that is why I think that Lawrence has asked for the specific location for the pools. But when we go by and someone complains, they've got all this storage, our guy doesn't have to get out and go measure, like he's saying, are they in violation because they're 810 square feet? We're not gonna do that, but if there's a defined area, this is where the storage, and if they're an inch or two out of it, we're not gonna be a pain, but when you're clearly out of it, it makes it challenging for code enforcement.
Okay, I was asking that because I know you were actually there recently, right?
I was there last Thursday
Yeah.
with Mr.
And
Lawrence.
this is a photograph you took of,
Oh, one of our code officers
Yeah,
took
yeah.
it. I did not take this
Yeah,
photograph.
that-
She took this, I believe, on Friday morning.
yeah, okay, that helps me to understand. I was just puzzled about why the pools weren't back there. And I guess well, this is a discussion item. That's it, I'm done.
Okay. Would you
Thank
please
you.
identify yourself for the?
Oh,
record?
I apologize. I'm Todd Martin, Code Enforcement Supervisor.
Thank
Or
you.
Neighborhood Enhancement is what we're called now.
Yes,
I have a question.
yes, go ahead.
I have 2 quick questions for you. if you don't
Okay,
mind.
I'll try.
And this one might be a little too philosophical, and I apologize, but can you speak to what you believe the intent of this rule is, this code that we're trying to stick them into at the 800 square feet, et cetera. I mean, I understand the 25% and the 20 feet, but is the intent to protect the aesthetics of the zoned area?
I cannot speak to that because I don't write the code. I only have get to enforce the
Of
code.
course.
My
Just wanted to-
assumption would be the aesthetic,
Okay.
but that's not my specialty.
It's my assumption as well. And my second question for you, obviously, you know, staff time is very valuable and you don't want to have to go out and measure to the inch every time, and these are odd things to measure, so I get that the box would make that easier. I had a thought, if it's the same X number of pools all the time and the inventory doesn't change that much, could they post for code enforcement's benefit the dimensions of the pool that it's taking up while it's just sitting there, so that your staff would know kind of real quick, boom, 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 that's the total amount of
Well,
square feet?
I could tell you by square footage, 3 pools are probably over 800 square feet.
Well, but there's.
I mean, if we go out there and there's 10, 12 pools, it's probably over 800 square feet.
Oh, of course, and
We go out there and there's 3 pools, it may not be over
But
800 square feet.
the presentation from Mr. Cullen, he said that the intent was for there to only be 3 pools in what they are proposing today. And so I am assuming that that would be a standard dimension that would be consistent. And if it went beyond that, of course, we'd have an issue. But I'm just wondering, would that be something that would make staff's life easier if like a known dimension was posted? Something like that.
I'm not sure it would make a difference because unless they knew exactly which model the pool is by driving by, I believe there's probably, he could account, I don't know how many different models of pool. Saying that they give us the general dimensions might help, but we have to investigate each case that we get.
Sure.
So if there's a defined area, we can clearly drive by and say, hey, look, this
And
area
it's
is
boxed.
asphalt, this area, some businesses have their storage area clearly defined.
Mm-hmm.
Some places don't, and that's when we get involved.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any more questions?
Thank you. Any more questions?
I've got one other question, just to clarify,
Go ahead.
please. So right now, it looks like there are a number of pools kind of in the front section, front facade of the building, and then also in the back by the area. It looks like there are a number of pools in the back part of the property too.
Only on this property that's in question tonight, there's the pools that are in the back. And then on Friday, the pool that was, and on Thursday, the pool against the building are the only ones on the property in question. The
So
other
if this-
pools are not.
If this request is granted, then they would be limited to only 800 square feet of outdoor storage,
Correct.
front, back, anywhere,
Correct.
correct? Okay. Is there any reason, and maybe this is a question for the applicant, is there any reason that that 800 square feet has to be so front and center and visible from the main road frontage as opposed to in the back of the property? The code itself is outdoor storage and display. However, it also requires that the outdoor storage and or display is clearly associated with the principal use. Principal use is retail. As the principal use is retail, I'm sorry? I thought the principal use of that property was office. No, it's retail. Retail, okay. That's what the zoning compliance form says, is retail. Okay, I always thought that 3,200 square foot building was the office building. Those terms have been a little bit interchanged tonight, but the zoning compliance is retail, 100% retail. And that's what it's listed. And so, yes, that expectation is for display for the retail sale of the pools. Okay. And that's why they want it up front. I thought about something as we were having this discussion. We would potentially entertain a condition that said something along the lines of maximum 800 square feet and 5 pools, or 5 pools and maximum 800 square feet, or something like that, that may help codes as they were to drive by, or something along those lines, something like that as a thought. So throw it out there. So.
Mr. Chair, I have a question.
Go ahead.
Mr. Cullen,
Yes, ma'am.
I have a couple of questions. The first one is, do you know the average size of those pools, the one pool?
Unfortunately, there's not an average size. I want to think that there's probably about 15 or 20 different models that they sell,
So
from
the
relatively
smallest and the
small
largest
to
in
big.
dimensions, do you know that?
I'm sorry?
The smallest and the largest in dimensions.
The smallest I'm going to guess is a 6x6, 7x7. The largest at this style pool being able to transport over the road is 10 by 20.
And what is the average size that is sold, sir?
It depends, I mean, there's lots of different situations and
Can you
choices.
ask him?
10 by 20.
10 by 20, thank you.
Okay.
The other question I
Yes, ma'am.
have, Mr. Cullen, is partly to answer a question here is, I'm still not clear of the terms of accessory short-term or temporary storage versus outdoor storage.
Okay,
So outdoor storage is prohibited in this
that's correct, and
VA
so
zone.
is temporary
Talk to
storage.
me about those terms, accessory short-term or temporary.
Sure,
It's
accessory
just been much too
short-term
much.
is part of a principal use. Has nothing to do with accessory use. Short-term, temporary, principal are all lumped into nothing that we're talking about tonight. We're only talking about accessory storage. It's nothing, it's not temporary, it's not principal, and it's not a permitted principal use.
And define accessory then.
Accessory is clearly incidental to the principal use of the building.
Meaning that in order for the business, because we're really talking about a business, not a building,
That's correct.
that is necessary to have those items.
As,
And
as
so
an
they're actually
accessory,
selling
yes.
what is on their property as their inventory. They're not showing examples that then somebody can order what they want.
There is the possibility for somebody to come and buy it and move it, but the reality is that the more effective way that that works is they see that one, they say, I want that one, and rather than picking that one off the site, there's one on a truck already there, or on its way there already. And so it doesn't have to be like a retail taking it off the shelf. This is display and storage, so it can be a display that's not necessarily storage. It's the same category. It doesn't have to be the soup can. It can be the picture of the soup can.
Yeah, it's getting real technical. That's my problem
Yeah.
with this. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Was your question answered about what is the reason for the resistance to just measuring?
Yes, yes, it was.
It-
Yeah, the resistance was if you specify as built as being a well-defined rectangle, and, you know, that's not consistent, that's more stringent than what the code says. The code says 25%. Doesn't specify it has to be 20 by 40. So what staff is asking for is a 20 by 40 rectangle, which at all times the pool shall be inside of. And Mr. Cullen's point was that is more restrictive than what the code is. And we can talk about this at
Thank
length
you,
because
thank
it's,
Thank
you
you.
know, it's complicated. There's lots of issues at hand here. And
Mr.
I think
Chair.
what Deborah was
Mr.
just
Chair.
on about was something that, you know, whether this is allowed at all. It seems like these are display pools. Customers come along, driving by, they see a pool, they think, oh, I'll go buy one of those. They go in, they order one, it turns up on the truck, they buy that one. They don't buy the one that's on display. So I was under the understanding that display for this outside storage is a suitable way to do this. Is that correct, Mr. Calder, on that? If there is a permanent display pool out the front, might have a sign on it,
Mr.
never
Chair,
sold, it never moves, is that temporary? Does that meet the requirements of the code?
Mr. Chair, when we review applications, we do not try to get into the style and the nuance of a business. The code says 25%, and we've applied that in more than one case, right? Number one, I would like to know if the applicant intends to comply with the current violation of thousands of pools that's on the site. No, well, let me correct myself. The number of pools which are on site. If the applicant intends to comply with this requirement.
sorry, Mr. Chair, this is
Yes.
not the Code Enforcement Board.
Mr. Chair, I have the floor, don't I?
Go ahead.
Yes. I would like to know if the applicant intends to comply with this requirement and comes to you and say, well, we have a violation that we're not going to comply with, or whether we are or we're not, but we'll come in and ask you for more outdoor storage. I think these are the things you need to take into consideration. It's what the intent of outdoor storage is. And I try to make it explain to you that the code is serious about outdoor storage. It's not allowed in any district except the industrial district, the warehousing district, and in BI by special use permit. However, the code is not so tight that it does not recognize the applicant's ability to have a certain amount of display of goods that they're selling and have storage of that either in the back, the front, or wherever. But the code says that you can have 25%. I did not come up with the 800. That was the applicant's request. And I recommended approval of the 25% because it meets the 25%. What staff is asking you to do is, number one, is it compatible with the area? Is it consistent? Does it matter where it is? Because you have a site that has residential, business, and BA. If we do not say it's got to be in this area, the applicant can say, I have 800 square feet on Sunday. On Monday, I will put it adjacent to the residential. And he would be totally in compliance with code. Now, would that be consistent with compatibility of the code? You have to take these things into consideration. The code would not say take it to the board. For what reason?
Yeah, that's why we're here.
I
That's
mean,
why we're
these
discussing it,
conditions,
right.
staff can understand that and say yes or no, but the board has to make this decision. Staff made a recommendation to you, and I am fine if you decide to strike down all the recommendations. I am totally okay with this, because that is your role and your function. But you have to look at what the intent of the code is. The code has gone so far to say you cannot have more than 50% of your parking in front of your business. How strict is this? I mean, to limit the amount of parking, which is a type of storage. It says you cannot have mechanical equipment in the front, you cannot have transformers in the front. That's what the code talks about. I am fine with, and staff is recommending approval because that is the way of doing business. We support businesses. But when the applicant refuses to say, I do not want to tie down where it is, I want it to be however many square feet, I want to continue having storage as I do now, then as a staff, we wonder what the intent is. Like when we look at the zoning compliance permit that says outdoor storage is prohibited, it clearly says that. Not in any mixed up words, it says that. And the applicant ignores that and just puts storage.
Mr. Chair, the applicant never ignored that and
Chair,
never
excuse
asked
me.
for that.
Mr. Kohler has the floor. Go ahead.
He's out of
Also-
line.
Also, Mr. Chair, the applicant's application said that it's a swimming pool office. That's where I got this from. As part of our recommendation, we asked that he clarify whether it is office or not, because if it's an office, then there's a question about whether you can have outdoor storage for an office. But he says it's a swimming pool, so in his application, when he submits the site plan, he would say operation as a retail store. Staff will be fine with this.
Okay, I
And
think that,
whatever you feel you have
yeah,
to
I think we've
is
answered the
fine.
retail versus office is going to be retail. Now, Mr. Cullen, did you have some comments?
I do. I'm really shocked that staff goes so far out of line to question what the applicant is going to do. The applicant has spent significant time and expense coming here to ask you to limit them to a certain thing. They wouldn't come here without the
I'm sorry to jump
expectation
in,
of
but I
meting
think
that.
we understand the parameters at this point.
I understand that.
Thank you.
And
Now, do we
so,
have someone else that would like to talk to the, yes, would you like to step up? Thank you.
thank you.
Hi, and good evening. I'm Tanya Kerrigan. I live at 1420 Northwest 43rd Avenue, which is the residential area east of this property. I've lived there for about 20 years. I know the property well. I walk that area all the time. So I don't feel like they're giving you an accurate picture of the area and what goes on there. on a day-to-day basis. And the reason that I took the time to come down here tonight is just to voice my concern that the businesses that front 13th Street fall into the same pattern. And it's not just this business, it's all the businesses that are adjacent to this one and a little bit south. And they do what they want to do. They do it at will, and they disregard, he disregarded his own signature that said no outdoor storage, and he did it anyway. And that is the pattern of all these businesses. And I just really caution the board that if you do not define this and you do not stipulate exactly what this business can do, they're gonna do what they want. And it's frustrating for me as a homeowner to walk on the street and walk on the sidewalk and have to deal with the trucks and the pools and the cars and the trash and everything else that's in this area because nobody is responsible and they do what they want. So I just very quickly just want to say, I think it's a slippery slope. The more you give, the more they will take. And the next thing I know, I'm going to go out of my backyard, and instead of me seeing the deer and the Hogtown Creek and the area behind my yard, I'm going to see swimming pools or another building or whatever they want to put back there. So I really hope that you will err on the side of caution and really stipulate what this business can do. I don't know if anybody has any questions for me as a homeowner in the area, but I'd be more than happy to answer them.
Thank you for your comments. Does anyone from the board have any questions?
I have a question. Can you tell me how long you've lived there?
20 years.
And have you seen changes in the recent or always?
There's always, the pool business started out without having these pools, but like within the last year, I would say the pools have always been there. At some area of the property, they move around. And it has grown. It started out with one or two, and then there's a few more, then a few more, and now look how many there are in this area. So it has grown.
And how do you feel the appearance, the general appearance?
It's horrible. I mean, it really is horrible. And I mean, it's not just this business, it's all of them. And I read what Mr. Calderon's staff actually wrote about the intent of, I guess, the code, the general characteristics of the property. And it does say that one of their major goals is to ensure, not only that it looks nice, but to protect the residential areas that are behind there. And I feel like unless you really are strict with the businesses, you're not protecting the residential area. And I think that's important. So I think it's important we have a nice place to walk and, free from distractions like, a pool right there. I mean, and I don't understand. I assume when they keep saying 20 feet from the road, but they don't speak about the sidewalk, because 13th Street is a very busy road. You have to walk on the sidewalk, and then that area is pretty close to the sidewalk. And
Yeah,
so
20 feet would be from the road right away, which is further in than the sidewalk.
I'm sorry, what was that?
The 20 feet would be from the official road right away. The right of way ends inside the sidewalk, so the sidewalk is well within the road right away.
Okay.
So it'd be much more than 20 feet from the sidewalk.
Thank you. I'm done with my question.
Okay, thank you.
Wait,
Yes, go ahead.
you've looked at the picture, and the whole back of this property is zoned single-family residential.
Right,
It's
and
a
that's
big-
where my property backs up to.
That's what I was gonna say. So there's this big chunk that is already supposed to be only single-family.
Correct.
And a part of your concern is, I'm asking, is a part of your concern that some of these pools and things might just migrate over
Exactly.
into that nice wooded area, so that it's not the 13th Street part, but it's the migration of the pools that you're concerned about, really?
That too. I mean, it's a little bit of both. I mean, it is an eyesore on that area of 13th Street. It's a complete eyesore, and I mean, they're not doing anything to make it better. And so, I mean, I really think that that's a concern. It's not pleasant to live around that. It's not pleasant to have trash and debris and everything else from businesses because they don't take care of their property.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Okay.
before we go down, yeah, I agree entirely. This is part of the city of Gainesville. It's a gateway along 13th Street. It is being ignored by the city. Every now and then, there's proposals that come up to investigate and redevelop and basically improve this area. And if you look at the uses that are on there at the moment, it's an unpleasant gateway.
It very much is.
And you know, there's residential right there behind, and the comprehensive plan is very clear that it wants to protect residential uses, especially when they abut industrial uses or business uses such as this. So we're aware of that balancing act, and we appreciate you coming here and talking to us. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Is there anyone else from the public that would like to address this issue?
Mr. Chair, just on protocol, so you opened the floor to the public. Could you check to see if there's anyone who wants to call in?
Okay, is there anybody called in that would like to speak to us on this subject?
Is good?
Hi. Yeah, we don't have the call-in function on this meeting tonight.
Okay, so there's no calls.
No.
In that case, if there's no more public comment, I'll close the floor for public comment. And we'll start discussing it as a board. Who'd like to kick the ball off?
Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Go ahead.
I wrote down 4 comments / questions / suggestions that I may have. And I know there was an issue with my microphone, so let me know if you can't hear me, please. My first note is based on the zoning verification form that was passed around that says the use classification is retail. I suggest we remove the condition that was proposed by staff that they have to verify that they are indeed retail, because that's what was on their approved zoning verification form. My second comment is just that I question the use of the term as-built, just because as an industry term, I feel like it carries more weight, but I don't disagree with the need for dimensioning to make it more clear. So I would just ask that maybe we rephrase that condition to exclude the use of the word as-built. My third comment, in an effort to help staff with ensuring compliance is being maintained on the property, either A, do the whole provide dimensions concept, which didn't sound like it was very well received, and or add stakes at the 20-foot mark so it's clear that we're not encroaching beyond that condition. Or if that's not an option, and I would like the rest of the board's opinion on this, I like that the applicant suggested that they'd be open to a condition that maximizes the number of pools allowed to be displayed, because one of the members asked about the average size of the pools. It's 20 by 10, that's 200 square feet. 4 pools, 800 square feet. So perhaps we could condition it. They're allowed up to 4 pools or 800 square feet, whichever is less. And perhaps that would make it easier for code enforcement as they drive by. They're like, oh, 1, 2, 3, 4 pools. Okay, rule of thumb, that works. That suggestion. And then my last comment and or suggestion, and thank you to the member of the public who came and expressed the concerns. We appreciate the local area knowledge that you bring. I know this is not part of the code, but I wonder if we could add a condition 20 feet from the right-of-way and from the residential zoning. So, you know, we can't exactly, per the code, tell them where they can put it on the property, but if they can at least keep it 20 feet outside of the residential zone, and if they don't, they have to screen it, perhaps that would address some of those concerns about maintaining the character of the area and improving that. And actually, my last final comment was that I respectfully disagree with Mr. Calderon when it comes to the open compliance issue against the applicant. If it's not applying to the property in question today, I don't feel that it's under our purview to take that into consideration. I feel it's our job to look at the property and the request at hand, and that is technically not related to the compliance issue on the property next door. So I don't feel that's it should be part of our discussion today. That's just my opinion. So just to sum it up, I would recommend some adjustments to the conditions, but overall, I mean, it sounds like the rule is 800 square feet, but not like we can limit where that is put or how that's added up outside of asking them to keep it 20 feet or more, and if it's less, they have to screen it. So it seems relatively straightforward, but I understand it's a challenging thing for code enforcement to keep an eye on because of these odd-shaped pools, etc. So I recognize that challenge, but this does sound relatively straightforward to me, and I would defer to staff's approval with the minor changes to the conditions that I'm recommending today, but of course I'm very interested to hear what everyone else thinks. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any other comments? Rather, who's next?
Sure, I'll go next, Mr. Chair.
ahead.
So, I've got some real reservations, quite frankly, with approving this for a number of reasons. But first of all, you know, the applicant obviously did know when they requested the zoning verification form that there was no outdoor storage permitted. Obviously, they've not complied with that. And, you know, there's a reason that pool display businesses are either in W warehouse or industrial, light industrial districts. And that's for this very reason, you know, and it's not a pleasant sight to have that type of outdoor displays on a major thoroughfare. And so, you know, the zoning is there for a reason. You know, I help a lot of businesses decide where to go, and when they're trying to decide where to locate, the zoning is one of the major issues. So, you know, in my mind, the fact that they just are trying to me, kind of skirt that issue, the zoning issue, when they knew, obviously, what the zoning allowed and didn't allow, is a problem for me. Again, I don't think it's compatible with the area, as the lady spoke, and if you look at the other area, that area of 13th Street, you know, it doesn't allow outdoor storage except for, you know, a BA zoning. It does not allow outdoor storage in a BA zoning. So I don't think it's consistent with the zoning categorization of that area. And again, it's, you know, to me, this is a major roadway. It's major interest into Gainesville, and as we all know, it's not a very. It certainly doesn't add to the characteristics or aesthetics of 13th Street if we allow this exception to the outdoor storage. So I'm inclined to not support it for those reasons.
Thank you. We'll just go along the line to make it easy, because we all have something to say,
Yeah,
right?
I'm still formulating some thoughts, and I'm enjoying listening to everybody else. So for right now, I don't know
All right,
if I
let's
have anything
jump over
additional
you, and
to say.
we'll go to me next. I'm also listening, and I'm listening to everybody, and this is a very complex issue. There are lots of things going on. I go back to, I'm looking at table 2 now, to the zoning districts where outdoor storage is allowed, and you know, in BA it says board, but it says BA also in MU1, MU2, OR, OF, CP, BES, BA, BT, BI, WI, everyone else except for residential. It does not say residential. Now, this is a bunch of residential property, and it is in what I consider a blighted area of town that needs some work, and it needs a wake-up call. And you know, maybe this is the canary in the coal mine, that you know, everyone knows about it, but nothing's happening. Why is nothing happening? When I first looked at this item, and I thought, well, outdoor storage. Who doesn't have outdoor storage on that stretch of 13th Street? You go down, there's mobile homes. There's a Cubata tractor place, which I think is very nicely done. There's car lots. There's some lots with lots of cars on them that I don't know what they do. You know, there's outdoor storage all the way up and down there. And if you go back from 13th Street, you have residential. Then you have Hogtown Creek, and just across from 45th Avenue, you've got the Headwaters Park. So it's some parts of this part of town are very desirable, and other parts, which is the part that we're looking at, is completely blighted. So I'm still on the fence. I'm still listening. I'm with Brent, and I don't know, it's up to us whether to approve it or not. It's not allowed by code. It's only allowed if we say it is. We only say it is if we think it fits in with the comprehensive plan, the vision of Gainesville, and where Gainesville is going, and where this area is. And we're at a point where this area is a very undesirable place. Now, that's one side of it. Going over the other side, what they're requesting to do is completely reasonable. You know, move those 3 pools across between the 2 houses, you know, hopefully not in front of the houses, not behind the houses. So if we were to approve it, I would suggest that we definitely add wording in there. If not, this is 800 feet here. It's, as Jamie said, you know, you're allowed 4 pools there. You can put them anywhere in front of and between the houses. You know, if it's blocking one of the properties, it's not going to look good. It's not going to be a display anymore. It has to be an aesthetic display. And what they said is just between the 2 houses, what Mr. Cullen suggested would be an entirely appropriate place, as long as it's only like 3 or 4 pools. If it gets up to 5 or 6 pools, as far as code enforcement is concerned, we could say, oh, you're not allowed any more than 4 pools there, no matter what the size. They just come along and count pools. Because the area does not say it has to be a contiguous area. It doesn't say it has to be a rectangle. It doesn't have to say any dimension. It's just 25%. So you could have 3 pools, each one is 10 by 20, you know, that's 600 square feet. All right, they could be scattered anywhere in that area, but once you start sticking them at the back of the houses, close to the residential, in front of one of the buildings, then aesthetically it's not on. So, you know, I could say something like that if we could very loosely word that rather than as built, that the display shall be limited to the area at least 20 feet from the edge of the public right-of-way, and a line between the 2 buildings in the front, and a line between the building in the front projected onto 13th Street. So that defines a very large rectangle, which is between the 2 buildings. So I suggest that that's how we could get around that. As far as office versus retail, I think Ms. Bell answered that it's retail, so that is not an issue as far as I'm concerned. I'm still on the fence, you know, I don't know. But anyway, I've said my piece. I will listen to what everybody else says with interest.
Okay, well, I'm looking at the staff report under the reading section 30.-514-541, outside accessory display and storage. The reviewing board or city manager may authorize accessory display and or storage outside of enclosed buildings subject to the following conditions. A, the outdoor storage/display area shall be designated on an approved development plan. The code defines the development plan as a plan indicating the permitted design and extent of development of a parcel of land approved under and pursuant to this chapter. So there is no plan. I mean, maybe they're not building, but in order to truly show, and what we've already asked is that there is a plan. We don't have any dimensions. We don't have any sense of these are moving elements. These pools can be moved around. You don't know. It's such a fluid situation. I find it very uncomfortable. And the fact that there is a previous history of noncompliance, nor a great effort to get in compliance from what I'm hearing in the general terms, maybe it doesn't have relevancy. For me, it does have relevancy. As a citizen sitting on a board, part of the decision-making process for me is to look at the entire picture. That includes the specifics and designated necessary things. It also includes the atmosphere and the impact on the neighborhood and the willingness of the petitioner to comply. And I have serious questions. So at this moment, I'm not supporting this petition. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, may I respond very briefly?
Yes, certainly. This is a discussion. Go ahead.
Mr. Calderon, could you pull up the site plan that the applicant submitted? Because while I agree it's not as detailed and dimensioned as I would prefer, there is a site plan, technically speaking, and I would also add that, yes, the property to the south is not in compliance, but it sounds like the property in question was violated and then came into compliance. So it,
Currently in violation.
the property in question today, I thought you said they came into compliance. Because there's the two properties,
Originally came in compliance.
and now it's out of compliance again?
Out of compliance, and there's a new notice issued.
Okay, I
9/24.
apologize, thank you for the clarification.
Yes, go ahead.
So I have 2 words, and then I have a story. Well, because I'm from the South, and we always have to tell a story. The 2 words, the first word is safety, in addition to aesthetics. You can do a lot of stuff on a bunch of pools that are all piled up all over the place. So safety is one of my words. And the other word is precision. So now the story. Precision is in to go to the tax assessor's website and pull that little picture that shows those little buildings and present that as the site plan with a little yellow thing. I have been trying, this is my story, I've been trying since July the 11th to get the city to accept an application for a permit for me in my backyard that nobody's ever going to see. I hired an architect, I paid the man $12,000. And he drew on the outside of my house, this is the approximate location of the power line, because he said, I'm not paid to be precise on the outside. And he said, this is the approximate location of the sewer line. And the city has asked me to be precise. The city has asked me to pay this architect another $1,000 to unseal this plan and put those things precisely. And it's going to cost me $1,000 because he says it's not his job. So, very nicely, somebody from the city said to me, well, you know, you can just draw it on there yourself. If you go out and you measure and you don't mind being precise, just be precise. And I'm saying to them, the work is inside my house. It has nothing to do with anything back there. And now to the canary. This is the precision. I'm now told that in our neighborhood, no one has ever yet been asked to give the city an easement where they can get to the sewer that happens to run behind our houses. Our houses are like this, and the sewer runs between houses. And they're saying, you know, the city really needs to have permission. And guess whose permit was the first one that came up since we decided we need to get people to give us permission to go to the back of their houses? You, Ms. Vandermeer, you are the canary. And so we are going to make you be precise, because we're using you as a way to help everybody to learn that they have to be willing to let us come in their backyards, basically, and take care of your stuff. And you know what? I, by God, did not want to pay that architect. I got onion paper, I went out there, I pasted off, I measured it, I got graph paper, and it took me several hours. And it's done. So the resistance to precision makes me think that there's a reason. Safety and precision. Those are my only comments.
Thank you. Okay,
Mr. Chair?
Brent, would you like to speak, or
You know,
you're still thinking?
Yeah, I'm still thinking, and you know, one of my concerns is I think one of the things that that Mr. Kane brought up, and you know, it does seem like that this is overall, in the big picture, this is a pretty straightforward application. We want to be able to store stuff on the equivalent area of 25% of the building on the property. And when you think about it like that, that's pretty straightforward. But I feel like part of the reason why this is not as straightforward is because the initial application for zoning specifically said that there would be no outdoor storage permitted. And there's evidence that since that verification form less than 3 years ago, that there's been outdoor storage on the property when it wasn't permitted. And so whether or not it's something that is in the exact specific description of what we're supposed to consider when we're considering a petition or not, I do feel like it's something that I take into consideration of there's a difference between knowing what the rule is and asking for permission to have a special permit to depart from the initial set rule versus breaking that initial set rule and then asking for permission later to break or to have a variation from that set rule. And so that is one of the things that I am taking into consideration with what seems like it should be a straightforward petition for being able to store stuff on 25% of the area of the building on the property. So that's my only comment is just that I'm taking that into consideration when I'm evaluating this petition.
Thank you. And you know, I think it's valid to do that because if you look at Table 2, it describes who makes the decisions. It says board. It doesn't define how the board needs to make the decision. And we, you know, in the past we've taken everything into consideration, the value of the community. It's a much broader picture. That's why these things come to us. And so, you know, we all have our own little angle of this, from the purely technical to the bigger picture to you know, concerns, lack of precision. All of these things are valid. I think valid things, valid parameters. Yes.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to say first that I really appreciate the broad range of experience and perspective on this board, because what you just said is absolutely right. Some of us approach it from a very specific and strict technical sense. Others take much more into account with the overall vibe of that area of town, and you referred to the blight, and there's a lot more nuance to it than you would originally anticipate when you approach something like this. And I'd like to throw out there as a recommendation that perhaps we ask the applicant to defer to the next board meeting, and we do not make a decision today, because it does sound like the vibe of the board is trending against this application, and perhaps the applicant could work with staff to come up with a list of better conditions that address all of the concerns that were brought up today, and perhaps come back with a better recommendation that would address more of those questions that have come up. Because it sounds, if we voted today, that perhaps it would go against this application, but I'd like to give the applicant an opportunity to sort of work with staff to try again to address some of what we've talked about today.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, go ahead.
I want to wait till the board is ready for me.
I have one more word came to me, and that word is grace. I am almost always a proponent of the spirit of the code. And I'm usually the one that goes against being so very rigidly specific, because I think the spirit of the code is what's important. And it is true, I'm watching myself, I'm taking the opposite tact today. I'm saying the code may not say that there has to be a precise site plan, but today I think there needs to be a precise plan. So the idea of going back again, and the applicant going back, and the applicant working further with staff, what I would say about that is I kind of think it might be another example of wasting our city's resources to continue this that much longer. I do appreciate you're being gracious, and the staff was being gracious by saying all we want you to do is just show us where you're going to put your stuff, so that when we drive past, we'll know your stuff is either where it's supposed to be or it's not where it's supposed to be. So I'm hearing a lot of grace and here, and I appreciate that. At the same time, I think of how much of our city's resources are spent by code enforcement driving around just to see how many times someone's going to be in violation. Yeah, it's been a lot of times already. And you are a canary, sir, and I hate that for you because I am too. But you know, you have to start somewhere to say this is the rule. So my concern about continuing is just that it'll be more use of our city's resources for something that's not likely to be much different than it is now. I'm done.
Thank you. Mr. Coleman.
Mr. Chair, I wanted to clarify Jamie's statement about outdoor storage. This is the site which is shown in yellow, and right here is more than 800 square feet of outdoor storage. So there is outdoor storage. This is in violation on the site, in addition to what's out there. The second thing I want to say is that the best thing that came to mind when I was writing this is an as-built. I do not expect the applicant to submit a plan like you submit when you're doing development review with all these knickknacks and details and all of that. The intent was purely to capture the placement, location, and to ensure that it does not migrate, you know, unknowingly. That was the intent. So your recommendation about, you know, trying to reframe it, maybe a plot plan or something like that, is totally acceptable to staff. So I wanted to pass that on to you before you make your decision.
Thank you.
I do have a final comment.
Yes, go ahead, please.
What's becoming clear to me, the more I hear, is that the concept that there's actually going to be 4 or 5 or 6 pools for display versus what we're continuing to hear and see in the evidence, there's considerably more outside. So, yes, I think there's some serious problems with this petition. Thank you.
Would the board like to hear Mr. Khan? He's at the dais. We don't have to listen to him. But go ahead. You have the board's permission to speak.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was only standing up here in response to the discussion that the applicant would welcome the opportunity to table this into another meeting to bring back a clear staff report that the applicant is in agreement with.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so the applicant has expressed a desire to table it. Is the board in general agreement with the move to table it, or would someone like to make a motion?
I make a motion to table this until the applicant is ready to come back before the board.
Okay, do we have a second for that motion? Hearing no second, do we have an alternative motion?
Just a point of clarification, Mr. Chair. So the applicant has requested the table. Does that mean that we still have the opportunity to is there still an active request being made of the board that we need to vote on or not?
As I understand it,
No. Okay, there's not.
It's held for however long they want until they come back and represent.
Well, is there a difference between a table and withdrawing the petition to then
Not
refile
really,
it?
no. I think
Okay.
the important thing to remember is that if it is denied tonight, they have to wait 2 or 3 years before they can come back to ask for changes. So the normal course of action is to table it or to put it on a pause for further evaluation.
but we have to agree to the tabling, right?
Yes,
Yes. We had a motion to agree to the tabling, and it didn't have a second. So I believe we have to have a motion and pass something. Is that correct, Mr. Calderon?
Yeah. The applicant can request that ask you if you want to continue the petition. What that means is that if you continue to a specific day, then we would not have to advertise again. We will just schedule it for that day. And he would do whatever is required or whatever he feels that he wants to do, and then bring it back to you. The alternative would be that he feels that, well, I do not want to come back to the board with this. I will just, comply and not have outdoor storage at all. But asking you to continue it does not mean that it's not within your purview to continue the deliberation on it. Otherwise, he would not be able to have the accessory outdoor storage unless the board approves it. I think I made that more.
Yeah. Say it again.
So, in other words, the applicant, if you continue the petition, you give the applicant time to.
Which I think that was just the motion now. Table means continue.
Yes, right. But I just wanted to clarify that because I heard somebody said that withdrawing or it goes on for 3 years or whatever. That's not the case.
So we have to vote to continue it, to approve it, or deny it. Are those the only three options that we have?
Yeah, pretty much so.
Okay, so.
Mr. Chair, to be clear, so if it's denied, he has to wait a certain amount of time to come back, is that correct?
Yes.
Yes.
So could I ask a question of the applicant?
Certainly, go ahead.
So, Mr. Cullen, if you decide that, if we continue our discussion on the board and decide that we will grant you a continuance, what type of timeline would you prefer?
I would like to come back to the next meeting. I believe that we can work with staff and define the resolution to the differences of the conditions in an appropriate manner where the board would feel comfortable.
So you feel that 1 month is adequate?
Yes.
Thank you. So, okay, so, yeah, this is very difficult. If it's denied, it looks like it would potentially shut down the business, or they have to find a place to put covered.
Well, they just wouldn't, they can't display. They're not allowed to store it anyway. Those have to disappear. They're paying a fine on it at the moment. And I suspect the fine will get bigger and bigger and bigger.
Yes.
If that's the cost of doing business, then we have a serious problem with the code and the way it's written, and the penalties have to be bigger. So in a month's time, I would expect to see a photograph, the same shot with no pools in the picture. Now, I'm not sure that that would be the case. And I can't ask the question whether it is going to be the case because it's not germane to the petition in front of us. So I'm not going to ask that. However, these things are part of the process of approval and denial. So, yeah.
Well, if you give them a month, then they truly have an opportunity to completely rethink their approach and how they're going to make a clear case on how they can be in compliance for a special permit. If you don't, then we can deny it, and then they will have to completely remove all the pools. That's the discussion.
Well, yeah, but the thing is, this is not contingent on the code violations. They're completely different issues.
Of course.
And we could approve this tonight with some minor changing to the wording. I am sure that amongst us all, we could come up with, add this, take that out, make them do an as-built, whatever. We could come up with that. But we didn't manage to get a second on the proposal to continue it. Means we all have major problems with the other things that are within our purview as a board. That's why it says board. It doesn't say how the board has to make its decisions. And we all have different attitudes, different points of view. Go ahead.
May I ask, Mr. Chair, what's the harm in pushing another month? I agree staff's time is valuable, and we don't want to waste it city resources, but I do think it's staff's job to work with the applicant to come up with a resolution to their code. And I like to think of staff in the customer service business, and we want to help our businesses come into compliance so that we can grow the business community in Gainesville I'd rather support them instead of shut them down. And so if we can find a way to help them come into compliance, I would prefer to direct staff to do that. And I'm just curious what the harm in delaying 1 month would be with regard to the big picture.
Well, I think the problem is that we're not allowed to tell them to come into compliance. We're not the code enforcement board. We're the development review board. We're reviewing this, whether a permit is required.
Yeah, but I think we can direct staff to help them come up with appropriate conditions that are feasible for them to comply with. No, we can't make them comply. That's code enforcement's job. But if we can help them come up with a compliable setup, that's not the word, I'm sorry. But you know what I mean? Like if we can direct staff to help them to come up with something that's, easier to not violate, that's cool, in my opinion.
Mr. Chair, I will make this more confusing for you, but
Thank you.
I support the request to work with the applicant, but here is the thing. Part of the whole process we're looking at this is that the code says that you allow 25% of your square footage as outdoor storage. So the applicant already has more than 25% here. So in working with the applicant, we would hope that he would want to switch that storage area from where it is in the back to some other place. Because technically, you would be going beyond the 25% by approving this plus whatever it is. But we support the request to work with the applicant and come back next month.
Well, thank you, but the assumption is that if we would approve this, those pools would not be there.
That was
otherwise it's
staff's assumption.
Yeah.
Well, the more I think about it, and I look at the history of this property, and I look at the approaches, at this point, I'm still in a denial situation for this petition. I don't think a month's going to make a difference, frankly. I mean, there have been so many flexed. This entire petition has so much flex in it to try to make it work, and there's been a history of complete noncompliance all along, and there's been shifting things around, and there's been, I'm sorry, I can't support it.
I completely disagree with denying this permit this application without giving them a second chance to work with staff, in my opinion.
In my opinion, they've had plenty of chances. And again, I think it gets back to, for me, the fact that it's not in a zoning area that allows outdoor storage. And it's not compatible with the area. That's not going to change, I don't think, in a month.
Right. That's right, and the fact that the original property was specifically said to have no outdoor storage, and to go through this entire process for so long with code, and then to come and ask for this complete exemption, variance, whatever you want to call it, yeah.
Well, I'm not allowed to make a motion because I'm chair, but if someone else would care to make a motion, we could.
You can pass the gavel and make a motion.
Oh, sorry. I'd like to make a motion to deny this petition.
I'll second that. Deborah Numorisi.
We have a motion and a second. I think at this point we need to vote on that motion. So all those in favor of the motion.
Before you proceed, I think it would be prudent to state why you will be denying this thing, so that there is a record of what you did and why you did it.
Okay, well, I made the motion, so I will specify that the applicant has not fulfilled the requirements to, my thing isn't working.
From what I have been
So
hearing,
that
I think you're looking at compatibility issues, existing storage that exceeds the 20%, and those factors that the code, and not that because he's willing to comply with these, so that would not be a good basis to deny the petition.
No, the fact that it's not in compliance now is not a good basis. The basis is based on the the inadequate development plan, the fact that it is not allowed specifically in the BA area. Outdoor storage is not allowed. The incompatibility with the RSF neighborhood behind, the lack of specification of the parcel zoning. There were 3 different zoning categories. They have not been defined, and that comes down to the applicant has not adequately addressed the requirement for a plan.
Mr. Chair, before we vote, I just want to throw in one last time that I think with the applicant requesting to go to the next meeting, it will be very disappointing if the board votes to deny the permit application, whatever we're calling it, today, especially when they've specifically requested more time to work with staff, and staff is open to it. And that's the last thing I'll say on it.
I appreciate your stand on that, I really do, and frankly, I've never quite seen a petition like this, and I've been on this board for a long time, that is so vague, so difficult, so complicated. Normally I would never do this, I would ask for tabling or recess, but this whole situation just speaks of non-compliance, of pushing something through, no acknowledgement of the surrounding neighborhood and the specific code requirements, and the fact that they purchased the land with specifically saying they could not have storage on it, so that's why.
All right, at this point, have you finished your motion, Mr. Thompson?
I'm still looking for additional stuff to put in there. I think the lack of compliance with the original development order is part of the problem with approving this particular petition tonight. And I'm looking at a picture here, trying to put it into words what that conveys.
Mr. Chair.
Yeah, the question.
The floor is not open for discussion.
Yeah, thank you.
Mr. Chair, I think what I heard you saying is that compatibility
Compatibility with the neighborhood and the fact
and that there is existing outdoor storage that is equivalent to or more than what the code allows, which is 25%. So granting the petition would be granting more than 25%.
yes, there was evidence that in the case in the form of a photograph that there was already storage on the property that exceeds the 25%.
Can you talk when there's a motion on the?
Yes, you can discuss the motion, which is what we're doing.
So did we have is that a finalized motion?
We're still sort of working on it.
So what I have is lack of compatibility with specific restrictions of outdoor storage. Well, excuse me, lack of compliance with specific restriction of outdoor storage. Compatibility of the neighborhood, continuing history of non-compliance with codes. the specific restriction was when the property was purchased, is that correct?
I think it was in the zoning verification.
The zoning, it's a zoning verification form that's dated October 30th, 2019, I believe.
Right, thank you.
All right, that's a concrete piece of evidence, yes.
Before we go further, with that specifics of the language. Can I say something?
Certainly.
I think we may be falling prey to the illusion that ultimately we have any control at all. That is to say, we could say no today, and then there's going to be all kinds of ways to challenge that. And honestly, I'm with Rick, who says he doubts there'll be a lot of difference in a month, and we could talk about what difference means exactly. But I tend to think that we have two groups that are both willing to at least talk for a month, and we are not likely to feel any differently in a month. I don't think Jesus is going to come back in a month, but if he does, it'll be moot anyway, right? So I would have to say, and I'm only going to be the second one, but I don't think I would support a motion to deny this petition at this point. But I certainly wouldn't. I would be willing to go along with the lady at the other end and say, let's give him a month. And if we all still feel the same way, and if everything is still the same, then we can reject it then.
So we're getting complicated now.
Yes.
So there's a motion on the floor.
Motion on the floor and a
There's
second.
a second.
Yep, and we have
The
to.
only options we have is the maker of the motion can withdraw the motion, or you can proceed to vote. These are the options that you have now.
Okay, so I'm the maker of the motion, so I can decide to withdraw it. I see,
Oh, I seconded it.
She did.
I seconded it. You cannot withdraw it.
you seconded it.
Oh, both the maker and the seconder.
Oh, okay, you have to agree. Okay,
No pressure.
I don't agree.
no, okay, so I cannot withdraw the motion. Seconder does not agree to it, so we cannot withdraw a motion.
So at this point, we need to
We need
vote
to
on
vote on
the
the
motion to deny the petition.
Should we do a roll call vote?
Correct.
Sure, I could, well, you're the chair.
Yeah, so, yeah, at this point, it sounds like we need to do a roll call vote on the motion to deny the petition for the reasons stated by Mr. Thompson.
Mr. Chair, staff, typically after a motion is
I
made,
don't,
Robert's rules allow for comment period in between.
does it allow for public comment as well?
The public can speak
Yeah,
to the
it
motion.
does.
Okay,
On
all
the
right.
motion.
Okay.
Are you opening it up for public comment?
Yes, go ahead with your comment. Yes,
Sorry.
I'm sorry.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, I appreciate you having us here this evening and reviewing the petition that staff presented and recommended approval. While I recognize there's a lot of discussion and a lot of complexities, I welcome the petition, the opportunity to come back and present a more concise, coherent, collaborative site plan with staff. And therefore, we strongly suggest that you deny the motion to deny at this point. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other discussion before we vote on this motion? Okay, all right, at this,
Do we want to discuss that any further?
I mean, does anybody else want to discuss the comments from the applicant with regard to the motion to deny the petition? Nope, okay, all right, at this point, I believe that we should proceed with a roll call vote on the motion to deny petition DB 21118 SPA.
Miss Rebecca Herrick, or absent. Miss Bell.
Nay.
Miss Deborah Neal Marisi.
Yes, my.
Dr. Barbara Vandermeer,
Hey, no.
Mr. Rick Kane,
Yes, deny.
Dr. Ewan Thompson,
Yes, deny.
Chair Brent Hartman,
I vote in favor of denying the petition.
1, 2, 3, 4 to 2. In favor of denial.
All right, so at this point, the motion to deny the petition is passed, and petition DB 21-118 SPA is denied by this board. I will pass the gavel back to Mr. Thompson.
Thank you for that very difficult job.
Mr. Just one announcement that the code states that the decision of the board is appealable to a hearing officer within so many days, and any decision does not become actually effective until or if there is an appeal. So, but that will be put in writing to the applicant.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That'll be provided in writing to the applicant, you said?
Mm-hmm. A written decision. Next item.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is information items. The board voted to discuss the role of the DRB and citizen input relative to minor and major developments. Deborah was the lead on this. Would you like to
Yeah, I'd be happy to.
address?
So, Mr. Caldwell, can you give an update on the current position of the city commission? The last I heard was that they were reviewing having minor and major developments come before the DRB again, as it was in the past.
So my limited knowledge of this is that the city commission has a referral to our staff to, I guess, bring back a recommendation to allow, I think it's intermediate and major plans, or to consider whether intermediate and major plans should be brought back to the board, the DRB, for review, and for the commission to consider that and how it's going to impact our staff. This petition has not been presented yet. It's still in the works. And our staff was supposed to be here, but due to unforeseen circumstances, they're not able to be there, but that's as much as we know about the petition officially.
All right, so basically we are tabled. Are you aware of any upcoming meetings regarding this topic with the city commission?
No, I'm not aware.
Is it helpful to, I'd like to write a letter to the city commission asking for an update? Is that appropriate?
Well, I mean, as an individual person, you are free to act in any way. As a board, it would take action from the board to make any such, take any such action.
Okay.
But it's not, I don't think that staff is unwilling to discuss the issue and the role of the board. It's clear what the role of the board is in terms of development review and variances and subdivision review. That's clear that the board has that role. The code has language which states that that the only time that a plan would be brought to the board is if there is a variance or non-compliance to code. And that's the time that the petitions are brought to the development review board. In light of other developments which have occurred in litigation and situation, the city commission was going to re-examine that role of the board, and that's still in progress, and that's still a possibility.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead.
I'm remembering that I started on the Board of Adjustment, which has disappeared. And it handled only variances. So then I have to wonder, so is this board in danger of being either discontinued or disempowered? That's kind of the question that's in my mind. But for you, I guess what you're thinking about is kind of a moot point now, if my question is accurate. Because, because your concern was that we be even more, efficient and effective and involved, and all of that is important. And at the same time, we can talk about that all we want to, but if my question is, if there's even a hint that there is an affirmative there, that this board would either be discontinued or further disempowered, then I don't know that we have a lot to talk about tonight beyond saying, I would say I fully support giving the board, I would support Deborah's letter as a board member, another board member, a letter saying in effect what we just said. We think the role is important. And even if we're just, I'm preaching at the choir here, but even if we're just a little deterrent for a short period of time, which is basically what we are in many cases, because we live in a democracy, thank God, and there's always a chance to, we can get to the Supreme Court with whether this guy gets to keep his pools if he wants to. And so I like it that we're just a little deterrent, and I would be supportive of whatever we can do to be supportive of this board's role in our town, and to increase its role, not decrease its role.
Yeah, I do feel that there's an urgent need for citizen input, particularly with the big developments, the minor and the intermediate and major developments. Because if you look on the map for the developments going in, you will see how, and as I've said before, I support developments for Gainesville. We need development. We need more income in this city. We need a dense business community on the major corridors. But there's also increasingly seem to be a lack of respect and communication, particularly communication, and some forms of compromising between these surrounding neighborhoods and the areas where all these big developments are going. And it's inevitable that there's going to be conflict, but there are ways to handle it where sides can have a bit more compromise, and my concern is that that is not taking place. And I agree with Dr. Vandermeer that if we become less important, then things become even more slanted. I think there's a yin and a yang, I've said this before, between business and citizens and living. And there's definitely a yin and a yang. They're dependent on each other. It's a codependency. But when one gets out of whack, either it's one way or the other, then it has big repercussions. So it sounds like we'll just have to wait and see how this transpires, is what I'm hearing.
This is not the first time that there have been considerations of the role of the Development Review Board. I think you just have to trust the system and your function and what you do in terms of public participation and where the city commission see you, and because I'm sure all of us, the interest is to ensure that the community develops in a manner that is consistent and compatible with the vision of Gainesville, whether it be through the Development Review Board or through some other process, and we'll just see how that plays out.
So what do you think the timetable is for this to pass through the city commission, where there will be some?
Good evening, board members. Brittany McMullen, planner with the Department of Sustainable Development. Sorry, I'm joining you remotely. But I did want to let you know a little bit about the timeline. So the city commission is expected to hear the proposed code change before the end of the year, I believe. It's not scheduled for a specific meeting yet, but there are, I believe, 4 meetings left in the year. I do think they'd greatly appreciate your input on whether or not you feel the board would be helpful in that development review process for major development plans especially, and also at some level of minor development plans. So I think it would be appropriate if you wanted to, provide a letter either as the board or from yourself personally, to let them know your thoughts about it. I think they'd really appreciate that.
Okay, thank you. That's very useful. So do you think we can write letters individually as citizens, or would you prefer that the board come up with something in writing that we all support?
That might be more impactful if you do it sort of as a board and all agree. But certainly it's up to you how you want to do it. But if you are able to come to an agreement on what you think the role should be and what your experiences have been in the past with reviewing development plans, that would probably help their conversation.
Okay, thank you. Deborah, what do you think would be the best way to approach this to get a letter as?
Yeah, I think a letter as a board, if everyone is willing to do it, is definitely optimum. It carries more weight as an official comment rather than personal.
So
I'd like to hear the thoughts from everybody on the board, though.
Well, I'm in complete agreement that it used to be the Development Review Board did have votes on larger developments many years ago, and there are some things happening around the city that have reached a flashpoint because there has not been an opportunity for citizen input, and we would have the flashing out in front of us, but at least it would be a way to get the citizen voice out there, which is not heard at the moment. So I'd be very strongly in support of. It's just a case of working out some threshold of what size development needs to come in front of us, and that's something for the staff. Is that in the wording at the moment?
I was going to suggest that you either draft somebody or think about a letter that you want to review and discuss, and then at our next meeting, we do have another meeting. I think it's October, we have a meeting with 2 items, that you can share these ideas in this forum here, and then decide how you want to finalize that letter, and then have it signed by the chair and send it to the commission.
Okay. So what's the appropriate way to do that, given the sunshine law doesn't let us talk to each other? Should I ask? Deborah already has all the ideas.
I don't think it would be a good idea to do this outside of a public meeting. You could write the letters, your thoughts, and then bring it to the meeting and discuss it then.
So how about for the next meeting, we can agree to all bring our own thoughts to the meeting in writing. Maybe we could give them to you beforehand so you can present them, or how do we get the writing up on the screen? That's how do we project?
You can send it to staff. Staff will put it on the screen for you or whatever. But
so we can, whoever wants to should write a letter addressed to you with the thoughts on the subject, and staff would then put it and present it.
Brittany might want to help me, but my thought is that each of you would have some idea or thought about your role and what you do. And you can draft this out in a paragraph, and the next meeting you bring that idea or thought together, and you share it, and then say, cross this one out, let's add this one.
Okay.
And you come up with
I hear you back. Sorry, I was looking right at you. Yeah, go ahead.
Mr. Chair, so I'd like to add my 2 cents, and I would like, as a newer member and maybe the newest member of the board, clarification from staff and or from the city commission on what our role actually is, because like Dr. Vandermeer, I started on the Board of Adjustment. That's what this, for like my whole 6 months I was on it before it was dissolved, right?
I never.
So impressive.
I don't know where I got that. But No, I was on the Board of Adjustment before it dissolved, and, you know, my impression was that the exclusive goal of the Board of Adjustment was to provide guidance on these variances and whether or not they meet the rule, basically. And so I kind of brought that understanding with me to the Development Review Board, and I was, again, under the impression, maybe that's why I take such a technical view of what we do, but I thought that was what the role of the board was, to look at these variance requests, see if they meet the rule, and make a recommendation to move up the chain. And maybe that's where my perspective comes from. However, I actually very much agree that as the Development Review Board, we should be reviewing developments for that, you know, blending with the surrounding neighborhoods, for matching the character. Like, I totally agree with everything y'all are saying. I just don't currently feel that it's under our purview. And so my suggestion would be, if Member Neil Marisi has sort of the ideas already in her mind, perhaps you could write a letter and share that with staff. Staff could review it to make sure it's consistent with what we are and are not allowed to say as a board, perhaps, and then staff could bring that or send that to the rest of us so we stay in the sunshine, and then we can discuss at the next meeting. But I mean, so far I do agree with a lot of what Member Neil Marisi was saying, and I think we could do it that way. So, you know, she sends it through staff, and then staff adjusts and then sends it to us, and then we make comments and produce a final letter at the next meeting, perhaps. But I'm totally on board with a letter asking for us to do actual development review and signing that and sending it to the commission.
Okay, thank you. That's a great idea, because
It's fine.
you have already done the groundwork on this. You know, if I tried to do it, I'd just look at your notes and rewrite them. So let's just do that in a board meeting, if you wouldn't mind.
That's fine.
Giving something to staff. Staff will present it, we will discuss it, and we'll wordsmith it somewhat, and it seems like we're all generally want to go in that direction, and then that blends in with where the city commission is at the moment, which road they're going down, and whether we can craft a letter to minor adjust it so to get this going.
I will send you the rules of the DRB, which includes all of what you asked for, as well as the section of the code that discusses the role of the DRB.
Thank you.
And you can have that as a basis to start your discussion.
Perfect.
Okay?
Sounds good. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you. There was one other agenda item, I believe.
Plan board.
Oh yeah, training and potential for discussions with the city plan board. The last time we discussed this, Mr. Calderon said that the city plan board was very, very busy, and maybe the time wasn't right. What's their schedule look like now? And
it's worse now. Because they have the comp plan. We're struggling to get a meeting with them because we're trying to schedule comp plan stuff, and it's hard to get time to. So I think this is a good idea, but at this point it might not be as fruitful as you think.
Yeah, I have a question. The comprehensive plan is done every 10 years, is that correct?
Yeah, that's why it's done this year. The last one was done in, we have 2030, the last one was done 10 years before that.
Really? I thought it was more like 6.
So,
However,
Right.
we still can pass on suggestions to the plan board as the result of any petition. So we sometimes do that.
We could make recommendations.
Okay, so you would say put it
Your
off
role is to
a little
do
bit.
that.
Fine.
So what is the deadline for actually hoping to have there are some current drafts of the comprehensive plan right now available?
Oh yes, there's a lot of information that you can take a look at, and I can send you a link of,
Yeah, I would like to have that link.
yes.
Okay, does anyone know the next meeting date?
October 20, I think it's October the 26th.
24. Okay, thank you. 26th. All right, got that right. I'll look at my Google calendar, but
Tuesday,
it's not
October
online.
26th. 1, 2, 3, 4. Football Saturday.
That's right. 2, 9, 16, 23.
Okay, so that's the next item on the agenda is adjournment. Did someone? Done. Bye.
Vote.
Thank you.